Thank you for standing, folks. Please be seated. Okay, we're back on the record. All parties, counsel, Mr. Jones, and members of our jury are present. Go ahead, Mr. McAllen.
Thank you. Okay, Detective, were you able to do those measurements that we discussed?
I was.
Thanks for doing that. Let's start with the curb. What was the curb height?
6 inches approximately.
Okay. And then the width of the parking lot?
About 116 feet north to south.
Okay. Now, I'm going to pull up the Leica scan for these other two measurements.
Sure.
Station, we're going to look down now from the street. Yeah. Okay, now, did you get a measurement from the middle of Franklin to the end of the bush line?
About 175 feet.
Okay. Now, if we could go to maybe Station 5, the station that shows the main scene. Two. Okay, so if you could use your pointer there and point to, when we reference the end of the bush line, what we're talking about.
We're talking the southernmost part of this small bush here.
Okay, so you measured from that point on the sidewalk there out to the middle of Franklin.
Correct.
And you get 175 feet.
Right about, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, then you did another measurement that went over to the other side of Franklin into the courtyard area, right?
To the curb, right.
So you did from this same spot, this bush line here on the sidewalk, right?
Correct.
And then let's go back to that station we were at. Yeah. And face the courtyard, please. Where did you measure, where did you stop your measurement?
Right along this curb line here is
Okay.
depicted.
Did you do it right there where it's sort of the curb, the red curb ends and meets the driveway?
It's that area.
That area, okay. And what measurement did you get there?
About 195 feet.
And you weren't able to measure from, say, Unit 1, like you did with the walkway, right?
Correct.
That's just the limitations of what you have available right now. You weren't able to do that.
Well, you're right, because it's going to measure in a straight line.
Yeah, that'd take you right through a building, right?
Correct.
So the best you could do is take it to that point on the curb there, right?
Correct.
Fair to say that if you actually did walk up to Unit 1, it would be several more feet, right?
It would be greater, sure, yes.
Yeah. So it's 195 feet from that curb to the end of the bush line. It would be fair to say over 200 feet from Unit 1 to the end of the bush line, right?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Thanks. Your Honor, may I approach the Exhibit 418?
Yeah, and did we want to do something on 233 too?
We can do that now or later.
Okay, all righty. We'll just remember it, please. So this is 418.
418. Jeff, do you recognize that?
I do.
And that's a photo you took?
It is.
I'm going to move to admit Exhibit 418 at this time, Your Honor.
No objection.
418 is admitted.
Okay. What is that photo?
This is a photograph of the magazine with all of the unfired ammunition. Well, that's exactly what the photo was. It was just taken at the police station after the scene had been
Right.
processed.
So for novices like me. The magazine's the thing that goes in the gun that holds the bullets, right?
That's exactly right.
And you took the bullets out of the magazine and laid them out, took a photo of it, right?
That's correct.
Do you have it queued up, or do you want to just publish it the old-fashioned way? May we publish to the jury, Your Honor?
Yes.
You could just hold that up so they could see what it is we're referring to. And that's a photo you took at the station later?
Later.
Okay. And there's 6 bullets there?
6, yes, sir.
Now, I apologize. I know I said I was done with 316, but I want to go back to it. Let's do probably the view we were at. Thank you. Okay, so, Detective, it's about time that I learn the directions here, the compass of this location. So I'm going to use this and your assistance to orient myself and anyone else who hasn't figured it out yet, okay? What direction are we looking right now?
East.
East. Okay. So if we turn and face the courtyard, well, okay, we'll do this. If we just pick a direction.
Where do you want?
Go to the courtyard.
Don't want to stop.
Okay. What direction is that?
North.
Okay. Now let's keep swinging around.
To the left?
Sure. What direction is that?
West.
And the next. And what direction is that?
South.
Thank you. I'm probably still going to forget it, but thank you. No further questions.
All right. Redirect.
Just briefly, Detective. Judge, first, I neglected to admit Exhibit 233. I thought it had been admitted. Marie corrected me, so I moved to admit it this time.
No objection.
233 is admitted.
Thank you. Detective, so you did some measurements during the break. One of the measurements, I believe you indicated, was the height of the curb was 6 inches. Which curb were you referring to?
The curb on the southern part of the parking lot.
Okay. And the curb running east along that concrete walkway, is that substantially the same height?
I think it's pretty standard.
6 inches?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be the 6-inch curb that separates the walkway from that gravel area as well, right?
Yeah, it'd be close.
All right, thank you. We saw some photos of a tree and a branch earlier. Do you know how far off the ground that branch was?
I don't.
Was it taller than you, or the height? I'm not just didn't mean to make you feel bad.
I appreciate that. I think so.
Okay. Just from your memory?
Right.
It wasn't measured, though.
No.
And how far was that tree with that broken branch from, say, Colin's body?
About 30 feet.
You were asked questions about the blood that was collected. As a detective, do you have to make some priorities about what's collected and what's not collected?
There's decisions made, sure.
And how do you make those decisions?
Well, we collect everything that we certainly feel needs to be collected. But at the same time, some items, I mean, we're applying some reasonableness and some experience and some training on what, if you have to swab it, you swab it. Like we talk about in our scenes, there's a story to be told there. But if we don't, and we feel like we talked about with the orange cones here, there was swabs collected from that blood, just didn't feel it was necessary to swab every piece of that.
Okay, and these orange cones indicated any single drop of blood, is that right?
Correct.
This wasn't a long, there wasn't pooling of blood, in other words.
Right, so anywhere we saw red staining we thought to be blood, We marked it for illustrative purposes if we didn't collect it.
All right, so if we went back to 316 and, well, let me do that right now. So on 316, as we look back from Station 5 at these orange cones, do you recall whose blood was over here toward this Mountain View entrance?
Kyle Zentek.
Kyle Zentek. And then if we went over to Station 2, and as we were looking at the blood located in this corner, I'm indicating just the southeast corner of this parking lot. Whose blood was indicated here?
Kyle Zentek.
Okay, and then there's a number of cones of blood drops, indicating blood drops between those 2 points, is that right?
Correct.
So what's the story being told there?
That it's the same blood trail, or from the same source.
All right. Did you make sure to swab bigger areas of blood or where there was pooling?
I don't know that I could say that it was the decision to swab or not swab was made off of the size of the staining as much as, like we're talking about, its geographical location and its relationship with the staining around it.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Sure. You were asked questions about the fencing that ran along the north side of that parking lot. Remember that?
Yes.
So there's an entrance that we've been referring to frequently during trial, which is the one closest to Mountain View dorm, right?
Yes.
And then there's one on the other side of that parking lot as well, right?
Correct.
And I'm talking about the west. Do I have that right?
Right. Still north side of the parking lot, but due west.
Okay. Is there any fencing along the westernmost part of that parking lot?
No.
And is there, what's on the south side of that parking lot?
There's some fencing that circles the outdoor stadium for the NAU campus. But as you follow that kind of concrete driveway, walkway that we've been that continues open, flowing south.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, the only wrought iron fencing that was described runs along the north side of that parking lot.
It's on the north side, moving east and west.
With 2 entrances?
Correct.
Or exits? Okay. May I have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Detective.
Now I'll turn to members of our jury and see if they have any questions for this witness. Looks like we do. So I'll see counsel and court reporter to sidebar. All right, Detective, the jury does have some questions for you. The first question is blood collected and/or analyzed primarily for identification purposes?
I'd agree with that.
The next question is it common practice for detectives to arrive on a crime scene several hours after an incident?
That honestly just depends on kind of when and where something happens.
The next question is, are all areas of a crime scene kept secured so that no items can be tampered with?
Correct. Maintain a scene integrity, yes.
Excuse me. The next question is, can we see the crime scene from the far upper corner window in Mountain View dorm on the Leica scan?
I can't publish that today in the courtroom.
The next question is it necessary to move evidence at the crime scene by officers prior to witnesses' documentation of the crime scene? For example, the Glock magazine and identification.
I'm sorry, Judge, could you read the first part of that one more time for me?
Sure. Is it necessary to move evidence at the crime scene by officers prior to witnesses' documentation of the crime scene? For example, the Glock magazine and identification.
So I think the answer to that is sometimes. In this case, I know the officers felt that there was a loaded weapon with a lot of people still around. So felt it best to unload it. I don't know that I can disagree with that as I sit here today.
The next question is, are you told where evidence was located prior to you documenting the evidence if it was moved?
Yes, so that's part of our scene walkthrough is when we're obtaining what evidence was located where and by whom, and if it's been manipulated, where was it prior to, where is it now?
Can you confirm that the length of the gravel slope is 11.3 feet and the angle of the slope is 11 degrees?
That's really, really close.
The next question is, from where Kyle was found near the gate of Mountain View and where blood was identified as Kyle's from the corner, it could be surmised that the blood trail could be Kyle's. But earlier we heard testimony from Nick Prato saying he ran down the sidewalk with a wound to his neck. Could that blood trail also belong to Nick Prato?
I don't know who sourced the stains that are marked with orange cones.
Follow up, Mr. Barker.
Yeah. Just on that last point, Detective. You indicated earlier that the orange cones represented where blood was found along that sidewalk area, right?
Correct. Excuse me.
And if I scan, this is 316 for the record, if I scan, we see what appears to be a trail of those cones. Is that fair?
Correct.
And then the trail ends here, doesn't it? Where the Mountain View entrance is?
That's also correct.
All right. You didn't locate any other blood going toward the courtyard area that followed this trail?
No.
All right. And this is the location where Kyle's blood was found and swabbed for on the concrete next to the medical equipment?
Yes.
You were asked a question about securing the scene. Were other officers there around the perimeter to make sure no one was going in the scene?
Correct.
And there's such thing as a crime roster or a scene roster, is that right?
Yes.
And what is that?
That's the uniformed officer that's holding that position. Anybody that comes in and out, a law enforcement personnel, he writes down who that officer is, what time they entered, what time they exited.
Okay. And that was done in this case?
Yes.
You were asked a question about if it's common for detectives to arrive hours after an event. Were police there during the entire time they arrived to the time you arrived?
Correct.
Okay. And were other detectives present besides yourself?
Yes.
And other supervisors were there before you as well?
Indeed.
Okay. You were asked about the view from Mountain View dorm into the parking lot. As you sit here now, you're unable to do that because it requires some other equipment, is that right?
Correct. It requires that laptop that we had viewed it on prior to today,
Okay.
last time I was here.
And if I could have just a moment, Judge, to look through.
Sure.
First one is Judge.
Yes.
NAU has been marked as 350. What is that?
This is a snapshot I took of the scan station with a bird's eye view looking down onto the seam.
All right, and not quite the view or perspective from the Mountain View dorm windows, but is it positioned in such a way that you can see the distance between the windows and the parking lot and concrete walkway?
Yes.
Do you happen to know the distance between that Mountain View dorm and the walkway?
So the corner of the building to the sidewalk, to the edge of the concrete sidewalk, because that building angles, is about 10 feet.
Okay. And I'm sorry, what exhibit was that again?
350,
All right.
350.
Move to admit 350, Judge.
No objection.
350 is admitted.
That's all I have.
Mr. McGowan?
No question, Your Honor.
All right. Can this witness be excused?
Yes, thank you.
Detective, thank you. Your testimony are excused.
If you don't mind.
Your next witness, Mr. Barker.
Judge, at this time, the state rests. Thank
All right. May I have counsel approach, please? And so we are going to have to break early for lunch. So we will go ahead and stand at recess until 1:30, and then we'll reconvene at that time. Please remember the admonition.